let's get this started. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us at the Lens Neighborhood Livability Association. It's our May meeting. Just a little announcement. Every Saturday morning at 8 o'clock, we go clean up around West Rock. And in return for us doing that, they provide the funding that allows us to do what we do. And I guess I really should give credit to New Hope Church. They have been very kind to us to give us the use of this facility every month for our meetings since we started. And without further ado, I'll turn it over to Keith Wilson.
Thank you, David. I think we're going to let Austin step up for a few minutes as a candidate for City Council, if you don't mind, and then we'll
for House District.
46.
Oh, 46.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, close. Yeah, I appreciate you. Thank you. Hey everyone, my name is Austin Daniel. I am running for Oregon Legislature for House District 46. And I'm doing this because I was called upon by my local constituents and politicians who have noticed how great I am at speaking to get people returning back to moderate views. You know, I spent some time in the far left. I've always been a Democratic voter my entire adult voting life. But I noticed over the last several years that there have been some unintended consequences of really well-intended efforts. But there are a lot of policies that we voted on that ended up having a lot of gaps that ended up actually worsening things like crime, homelessness, and addiction, that's the gamut that seems to be the major focus of a lot of politicians. And so I think with my moderate stance, I can really help get through to shifting the ethos from being too far left and being a bit more reasonable in our approach to things. I have brought with me my petition form to help get me on the ballot because I'm a non-affiliated voter. I am skipping the May primary, so you're not going to see me on the May ballot, but I will be on the November ballot, assuming that I get enough signatures. They're not due until August 13th, so I have plenty of time. But if you are in House District 46, which is the Lens neighborhood, please don't leave without signing this. That will allow voters to have the option to have another candidate. Right now, those running against me are whoever's going to win the Democratic primary, which is either Willie Choatson or Mary Lou Henrich, both amazing people, formidable candidates, and I'm honored to run against either one of them. So if you guys have any questions, go ahead and ask me now. Otherwise, I'll hand the floor to Keith Wilson.
Where's your moderate stance on the drug situation that you said that?
Yeah,
I agree that people either go this way or that way too far. There's no medium, and it causes problems.
Right. I mean, the thing about having a moderate opinion is it's extremely nuanced, and sometimes there's really long answers to it because there's so many details. And so you can't make broad generalizations about all drugs. They're all very different. So while there may be more medicinal drugs like psychedelics and cannabis, which I've heard from a lot of law enforcement, that they are okay with decriminalizing those ones first. But when it comes to things like fentanyl, methamphetamine, heroin, and crack cocaine, those things that can lead to deaths, overdose, criminal behavior, and things like that, it would have been better for us to start out on the low end, but also not introduce broad sweeping drug decriminalization during a fentanyl crisis.
So you're in favor of the new?
The HB House Bill 4002, that amendment, yes, I am in favor of it because that actually gives power to the DA and the judge to treat everything on a case-by-case basis, and they have the wherewithal to really evaluate whether or not a person should have any degree of jail time, and usually the nice thing about Portland and Multnomah County, Marion County down in Salem, Clackamas County in Washington County is they actually never really did criminalize people who were caught with drug charges. I actually, when I was 18 years old, which was like 19 years ago, I got caught with possession of mushrooms. And so I've actually been in the criminal justice system and I know what it's like for having a drug charge. And the ethos currently from the liberal perspective is that if you get caught with drugs, you go to jail, you are not offered drug treatment, you have a higher chance of relapse and ODing, and that you end up getting followed around by drug charges that prevent you from getting into school or finding a place to live or having a career. And it turns out none of that is true because I never served jail time. I was required to go into a drug diversion program. So even though I was neither a criminal or a drug addict, I was in a program where I met so many other people who were criminals or addicts, and they admitted to me that this system actually kept them clean and out of trouble. kept them from relapsing, kept them from ODing. And then even though I had a drug charge for many years, I still attended 9.5 years of progressive, liberal, woke Portland colleges. I got my master's and my doctorate in acupuncture and Chinese medicine. I've never had an issue finding a place to rent or a clinic to work out of. I got my massage license and I've had a successful practice for 15 years, and I bought my house 4.5 years ago. And so I understand this compassionate ethos where you can take information that might have happened historically or in different parts of the US, but it really isn't appropriate to apply that to the here and now where that's not actually happening. So I understand that was well intended, but I am so glad that they were as wrong about it as they are passionate. Otherwise, I would never have accomplished what I have, and I might actually be homeless and dying of fentanyl in the streets. So I think that my perspective is really important to take into consideration, because people don't really know what they're talking about when it comes to these situations, and what we're being bombarded with is propaganda that means well, but it's actually not in touch with reality. And so I think that my voice is really important to take into consideration when it comes to something like that.
The people you're talking to too.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for asking that question. Was that a sufficient answer?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, I could, and that was the short answer. I could go on too. I mean, when it comes to like Portugal it's a very small country. It's about the size of Maine, and it's about 8 times the population. I think it's about 10.4 million people. And the thing about Portugal is it's entirely federalized. It's not divided by 50 states or even 2 states. And so they actually have the infrastructure in place for drug treatment, detox facilities, helping the homeless, education, vocational services, and other social services that were very comprehensive in helping people who are either addicts or likely to become addicts. We in Oregon did not have really any of that. In fact, we are 50th in the state in access to treatment and mental health services. And most voters who voted in favor of Measure 110 did not know that. I didn't know that. I voted in favor of Measure 110, and I thought that we promised that addicts would receive treatment. How can we do that when the Oregon Health Authority has their hands tied with something that's called Certificate of Need? And Certificate of Need, it meant well. I think it was designed to keep there from being too much competition between hospitals, so that hospitals wouldn't go out of business. But what that has done is it has prevented us from being able to approve the implementation and operation of brand new treatment facilities. And so my hope is that either when I'm in office or other people who are in office who learn about this can do away with the Certificate of Need, so that we can actually have the necessary amount of drug treatment facilities and detox centers to really address.
That's a statewide.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay. Yeah. It's unfortunate, but well intended, but a lot of unintended consequences as a result. So.
Well, how many people in the city of Portland? What's the population?
About 700, 600,000.
Can we get 700,000 people to write a letter to Tina Cote?
Yeah.
Well, I'm just saying, if you go and you protest, and people protest, and they have the right to protest. Of course, we don't want any violence and agitators in there, but everybody has the right to protest. But people see protests all the time. Mm-hmm. But could you imagine if somebody had 700,000 letters to the legislature?
Right. Yeah.
3 days in a row.
I mean, we'd be overwhelmed, but yes.
Yeah, but they'd go, what the heck? What's going on?
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's ways of doing things that are out of the ordinary that I think would make a bigger difference.
But we don't have enough mental health workers to take people in that are trained and know what to do we? We don't have a facility or people. So even if we were to arrest people or make them go to facilities, there's no facility to go to.
Well, I will say that Hoover and some other places don't have full beds often.
Okay.
And they turn away
Because we don't, in the public
so
here.
maybe we should fill those.
But we don't get all the information in a chronological order to make an informed decision about any of this.
Right. There's no database.
Because we heard about a facility that was, let's say, multiple health facilities, Providence and Kaiser, they were going to get together. So if somebody was having a crisis, they could be taken immediately for 24 hours. But I heard that place closed. So, and it wasn't about who was making what money.
Yeah, there was an an idea from Jessie Burke that she wants to implement a system that allows everyone to know in this database what beds are available. And right now that sort of system doesn't work, but because she works in the hotel industry, she wants to basically replicate what they do in hotels in something like this. And that's a really brilliant idea. I'm sure Keith has something to say about something like that, but should I hand it over to you now, or?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to steal your time.
Always a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
No doubt. So thank you all for this opportunity. It's a beautiful night. You're crazy to be in here. Let's just start.
Yes, we are.
I do want to just start with Shaw and David. I've known you for, I think, 5 years. You invited me to come out to breakfast and to meet your neighbors and to really get deep dived into Lens. Just driving up here, it just breaks my heart. You know, I was out on outreach downtown in Northwest, and the outreach worker and I, we get back to the resource center, and we're just both on the verge of crying, because what we have to look at and deal with in humanity, it's just breaking our hearts. And we're sick and tired of feeling sick and tired. But we all are so compassionate, but some people say that we're starting to, close up. We're stopping to give time and money in our hearts, but I don't believe that. It's helplessness. We just feel helpless, and we want to know a way out. And I put this photo up. I was driving by City Hall on December 10th with my son, and I saw this. This is just a few months ago, and it's a declaration of surrender. It's like, what have we become when our beacon of hope is surrounded by misery and cruelty and inhumanity, and we're trying to reference that to the world? Come and live here, come and be a part of our society. And I just know that there's a better tomorrow, and that's what we're here to really talk about. But I do want to give Shar and David a debt of gratitude. They work awfully hard for our community. They go to the events around the city and everything. Right, I agree. They're so very caring, and they brought us to this beautiful venue. And I do want to give a comment to Matt Huff. He's our executive director of Shelter Portland. Matt and I have known each other as long as David and Shar. And Matt and I have been two peas in a pod. We see what's going on, and we've just been working. I tell my wife I work 24/7. She says no, she gets 1 hour, so it's 23 hours, which is funny. I said that the other day. But my point is we have a real heavy lift. So really the goals here is, I opened up a day shelter 8 weeks ago now. And I need to open up shelters to understand how to solve problems. You can't solve problems from a corner office. You can't do it with a spreadsheet. You can't do it with a conversation. I want to operate a very successful business. And the way I've always succeeded is I never make decisions in an office in a closed loop. I always go where that decision is going to actually be implemented. And then I start asking those individuals, what do you think about this? And they almost always say, that's crazy. Why don't you try it like this? But we get to the same destination, but it then becomes their idea. They've always made it better, and they always ensure it's going to work. That's why I had to open up shelters in this whole process. And so I've been working on this for 5 years, and I'll tell you some stories to some degree, but then I want to get to questions. But the reason we're here, the main point, is day shelters. So we opened a day shelter 8 weeks ago, and as soon as we did, the fentanyl reset was notified downtown. And so what we do in Portland is we call an emergency and we say, these 275 square blocks are important to us today, out of the 145 square miles in our city. And we say, this is going to be important for us today, and everybody's moved out of that. No sooner did we open our day shelters did they do the reset, and we had tents that were ringing our day shelters, and neighbors that were saying, wait a second, you didn't promise that. This isn't what you did. So we've been meeting with neighbors. I've been bringing in vehicles. We've been doing neighborhood cleanups. We've been really befriending, trying to work with the neighbors, because we know that, we have to end unsheltered homelessness. And that's really what I'm here to talk to you about. And Matt has been I'd say probably the anchor of everything I do. When I say, hey, let's go do this, he says, okay, let's go. Never a no, always a yes. He's an extraordinary person. He's been somebody who's helping me throughout this entire process. So, everybody, my name is Keith Wilson. I'm running for mayor. My overall focus is to deliver real change for Portland. That change begins with ending unsheltered homelessness in the first year that I'm mayor. So unsheltered homelessness are those individuals living in tents and makeshift shelters. They're living in the RVs on the roads that we just drove up on, in cars that are inoperable, unregistered, unlicensed, uninsured. Those cars are not supposed to be on the road. I end unsheltered homelessness by opening up rapidly a network of nighttime emergency shelters that are walk-in, and we will always in our city have at least one empty bed every night. because that allows us to meet the rules, the laws, Martin versus Boise. We must have an ample enough amount of shelter to meet the needs and care for our community. There's nothing wrong with that, right? Isn't that what a civil society should be doing? So that's the goal. And so when I've been talking about ending unsheltered homelessness, and we must do it in 1 year, I've tried to do it by districts. I've tried to develop ways. My team and I have been working on how do we do it slowly at low cost. There's just no way you can do it. You have to do it all full scale. To meet the law, you have to end unsheltered homelessness really quickly and humanely. You can't do it in bits and pieces. You can't do 50% in the next 5 years, because it means you're still going to allow people to camp on the side of the road. You're still going to impact your community and your livability. So now I've been hearing it can't be done. That's just crazy. That's a lie. You're not capable. Those are the things that you're going to be hearing this next 6 months. But I'm asking you, don't believe it. So if I believed everything that everybody said, I wouldn't be before you in Oregon. My company is in some cases, and some people admittedly would say it's an unsafe business. It's transportation. I run 24 hours a day. My forklifts are rapidly going across the dock. We're moving line hauls from city to city, triple trailers. You would argue that, wow, that sounds pretty unsafe. But at Titan, my company has the lowest workforce injury rate in the state. There's not a safer company. So people tell me it can't be done, and I say, I beg to differ. Yes, it can. We have one of the lowest crash rates in the nation. I use advanced artificial intelligence, high technology, with an extremely well-trained team that knows the policies. They know my expectations. I rarely fire people because when they make a mistake, it's an opportunity to make them better, because I don't want people to leave, because when you kick people out the door at your business, you're kicking out all that experience. Mistakes are how we learn. And then when you think about carbon, you think about a transportation company. My trucks, dozens, every day are going by this facility right here on I-205 here. And they generally would spew nasty diesel exhaust. It's some terrible stuff, horrible for respiratory disease. So my company in Portland today doesn't use 1 gallon of fossil fuels in my entire operations. Not on my dock, not in my cars, not in my trucks, none. Everything has been converted to electric or renewable diesel. So to say that it can't be done, we have the lowest carbon footprint carrier in the state, if not the nation. So keep telling me that it can't be done. And I'll tell you, every time you tell me that, I realize you tell me no, it means I'm on to something. And now, an extremely hard lift. We are the first electric fleet in Oregon. I just added 6 trucks. Todd, nice to see you. Just added 6 trucks. Extremely hard, you guys. You know, you don't have gas stations anymore. You got to add all these charging stations. Talk about hard, right? It's not just buying a truck. You now have to buy the gas station when you buy a truck. But we did it. And so we're the most advanced carrier, arguably, in the nation. And with that, we've earned National Innovator of the Year the last 2 years. So keep telling me it can't be done. So we're going to talk about what can't be done right now. And that you're going to be thinking that. So I want you to pepper me with questions and just, kick a tire and literally see, well, how can it be done? I grew up in North Portland. I'm born and bred. I love this city. I lived in a 900 square foot home. There were 7 of us. We were poor. Mom and Dad were hardworking Joes. I mean, they went at it. They raised our family up. We ended up doing well. Dad delivered luggage from the airport when your parents had it lost. He was the one delivering it to your house. I aspired for a higher education. Dad and my brother never graduated high school. For some reason, I was always motivated. I got a degree, and I promptly got on a plane, and I went to New York, and my first job was at NBC at 30 Rock. Wonderful time. Did that for 3 years. I went to go move overseas. My dad said, "What are you doing? You can't leave. You can't do that." And I picked up, and I lived and worked overseas for 2 years. Had a wonderful time, wonderful experience. Living in New Zealand, getting ready to accept a network television job. And I realized if I did, after being away from school, New York, living overseas, I would be away from Portland. And after living and/or visiting 30 countries from around the world and living in some of the great cities of the world, I will tell you firsthand, Portland is the most beautiful city in the world. The problem today, she's taking my one-liners. The problem today is I don't recognize my city. So I can sit back and do nothing, and I can move like many of my friends have done, because our population is falling today. Our population had almost always stabled or grown, not anymore. Our families are fleeing, our businesses are leaving, and they're taking all that economic engine and good jobs. Our schools are plummeting because they're losing the funding. So what we're here to do is we're to talk about how are we going to address it. So I'm running for mayor because I see our city hurting. I never expected to be before you. But at this point I have to. I see constant failed leadership with failed policy over and over again. I don't see innovation. I see suffering, and I don't see us addressing it as such. So as mayor, in the first week as your mayor, I'm going to declare a public safety emergency. I'm going to marshal city, county, state, and federal assets to come help us. I've already begun that conversation. I've already had conversations with Speaker Fahey. I've already had conversations with our county. I've already been in conversations with federal officials, and you'll hear that. Because I don't want to wait for January 1st to get started. We need a blueprint to get going. And the first 3 things we're going to accomplish in that first year is we're going to end unsheltered homelessness. We're going to set up that network of nighttime emergency shelters to care for everybody immediately. We're going to talk about day shelters. We'll circle back to those 2 things in a moment, right? Matt and I have been developing a blueprint and working with national leaders on how we can do it, the national leaders who've already done it. This is nothing new. This is not rocket science I'm talking about. This is proven process that's been being used for hundreds of years. We're just trying to do things different here in Portland. We shouldn't. We should just get back to basics, right? The second thing that you're going to experience is public safety restoration. And the reason why is 50% of all of our arrests every year are of the unsheltered. Do you know they are only 1% of our population? We're spending 50% of our resource on 4,000 souls, arresting and re-arresting. I was with police officers 2 months ago, CJ and AJ, at the neighborhood response teams. And when we arrested the guy said, oh gosh, and they looked at his record and said, oh my God, you've been arrested quite a bit. He said, yeah, 9 times in the last 3 months. There's no sanity in that as far as our society goes. And he's living in an RV right on the side of the road. And what has happened with that is it's affecting you and your safety personally. 10 years ago, when you called the police, they arrived in 6 minutes for a priority call. Mm-hmm. A priority call today is 24 minutes. It's 4 times. If it's a medium or low priority, they don't even show up at all. If you are robbed or property crime, do you know store owners have just stopped calling the police and they've stopped filing reports. So you'll see the metrics and they say, oh, property crime is falling. No, when you see that falling, that's hope is what you're seeing falling. So that's number 2 of that. And number 3 is revitalization. So Montgomery Park. I grew up at Montgomery Park when it was Montgomery Ward. Remember the train used to go underneath, and that's where I used to go shopping for Christmas. I was from North Portland. I'd go across the St. John's Bridge. It was like wonderful because it was floor after floor of toys and Santas and all that. Some of you remember that. Well, Montgomery Park sold in 2019 for $250 million. Right? Class B, Class A office. $250 million. It sold a couple months ago for $50 million. So my point to you is that's not a canary in a coal mine. That's a clarion call. You need to write that ship because look at the taxes. So it's probably assessed, all of our homes are assessed about half of what it really is. So even if it's assessed at $125 million, at about 1% property tax, we generally are paying $1.5 million into the city coffers for property tax to fund our general funds, right? At $500,000, it's reassessed now. At $50 million, it's only $500,000. All of that money now is going to be reduced. Now, times that by a 30% vacancy rate, which is what our downtown core is at, the highest in the nation. So that's the problem I'm expressing to all of you, that we don't have the time to wait. We don't have time for half measures. It's time for action. Our community is hurting, so let's get going. So now what I want to do is I'm going to kind of go off of what I usually talk about. We're going to specifically talk about a nonprofit that we started about 6 or 7 months ago. Matt and I were a part of Shelter Now. We were an advocacy group, working with county, working with state. Hey, come on, everybody. This is how it's working around the nation, trying to advocate. And we weren't getting anywhere. They're just good people. They're all overwhelmed, just like all of us, right? They're good people. But now we have become, from an advocacy, Matt and I and a large group of us, we've become action. So we've started adding shelters ourselves. But I want to tell you a little bit of a story. I want to start with just the problem statement. 136% increase in unsheltered rate since 2017. The day we opened up the Joint Office of Homeless Services, the rate started skyrocketing. They haven't decreased unsheltered homelessness 1 year. The worst part of that is we sheltered 2,500 souls in 2017. We're sheltering 2,300 today. We're sheltering less people today than we did in 2017. Yet we're spending hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. So it has become an abject failure. As a business owner, I will tell you, you have to know how to pivot. You have to understand to read the numbers and call out whether or not it's working or not. And if it's not, then you must change course. Failed leadership, failed policies, without the ability to recognize that and making changes. 35% homeless upon arrival. That is point in time count through Multnomah County. In other words, when I was at Lentz Park the other day, doing the point in time count, not the other day, it was January of 2023. When I was at Lentz Park, I ran into a high school classmate, and I'm doing the census on her. But she's from Portland, because in Lentz, a lot of these individuals are neighborhood. They are community members. You go downtown, riding with police officers, they'll tell you it's more like 60-70% homeless upon arrival. But overall aggregate in Portland, 1 out of every 3 souls in Portland are homeless upon arrival. They were homeless in some other jurisdiction, and they're homeless here for whatever reason. Because there's 4,000 people on the street, there are 4,000 stories. It's not a monolith. Yes, it's behavioral health. Yes, it's addiction. Yes, it's domestic violence. Yes, it's trafficking. It's all those things. It doesn't matter. It's misery, right? So let's just group them together and care for that. 52% arrests, and I told you that earlier. Our officers are spending the majority of their arrests on the unsheltered. And you wonder why we can't hire officers? What officer wants to hire on and say, oh, by the way, half of your time is going to be focused on just arresting the unsheltered folks, right? So we need to do better. We need to reset and recognize and understand the root cause and then address the root cause. And then certainly all of us are suffering from affordability. So just a few things. Our mission is to end unsheltered homelessness in Portland. This is not a normal presentation. I'm just going to show you some key points, and I want to get to your conversation. Sharon, I know I have a large presentation deck, but this is the numbers. I really want to draw everybody's attention to this. I'm specific on the graph there. If you notice in 2017, that's when Joint Office first began. And you'll notice that we're at 4,100 as far as our total homeless. And their mandate is we're going to end homelessness. We're going to end homelessness. I'm not here to tell you that I'm going to end homelessness. It's very difficult. No city can end homelessness until you end unsheltered homelessness. It's a physical impossibility. The solution is shelter. And you can see what happened since it began. I notified 2,500 souls were sheltered in 2017 and only 23 today. But then you look at the unsheltered. 1,600 souls is at 3,900 souls. Last year it climbed 900 people. We opened 1 temporary alternative shelter site at 180 souls. Yet we added 800 to 900 souls to the streets. We're going backwards fast. So we have to really course correct as fast. And if we don't course correct, it's measured in lost lives. We can talk about money. We can talk about coordinated entry. We can talk about how many people got into housing, because we're always talking about these different numbers. But when you measure it in lost lives, those are our babies. My neighbor across the street is 30 and she lives in a tent downtown next to the Greyhound station. She's addicted to fentanyl. She lives in a tent, and the county gave her the tent. No sooner did the county give her a tent, the city says, I'm going to sweep her. And they sweep her. And guess who's right behind the sweep? The county handing out a tent. She also has a bed at the Greyhound shelter that isn't slept in. She uses it for a meal, a shower, for laundry. They don't require her to be in that bed. So she's taken up 2 beds, 2 sleeping places in Portland tonight because of our lack of clarity, our lack of accountability. Not in a bad way. That bed could be used for somebody else because there's 4,000 people out there. Pardon me. Yeah, there's 4,000 people out there. That's the system that we're working with. We have to understand how the system is working to fix the system. That is absolute clarity.
When did you say that 900 came in?
Last year, from 2022 to 2023, our unsheltered rate grew You see this point right here? This point 2022 was 3,000, now it's 3,900.
Why isn't she using the bed that she has?
She's addicted to fentanyl. Her dealer's in the next tent. The addiction will not drive a rational decision. Allowing her to have that tent is almost, I try and stay away from certain buzzwords like enabling and things like it. It doesn't help, right? But you can see that unhealthy, perverse support our city is giving, right? Right? So let's just call that out. We have to recognize we have to take responsibility. And look
We're
at the
incentivizing the worst behavior for them. You know.
And you can tell I'm really guarded on but I'm trying to say, let's just take care of the problem, right? We're not here to get angry. We're here to care for our community. We're here to fix our hurting community. And I'll move on to a second. I won't talk too much, but there's the campsites. When I show my experts that, they are just amazed. It's a cancer that's just racing through our city.
This is from Point in Time.
Yeah, this is PDX Reporter. You
Yeah,
can all just go onto your website and this is Shelter Portland. You have access. Just click all these buttons. It'll go right to it.
Let's just go down the street.
And just go down the street. That's right. And then, how Portlanders are leaving? How Portlanders are dying, and those that aren't dying or living on the street, we've started to white flag it. We've stopped realizing that this is the city I want to be in. And we're seeing an exodus of our friends. And I have friends, for sure. Now I want to talk to you about the team, but how do we get out of it? So I've assembled a national team of leaders, some of the best in the nation. It starts with Mike Lindbergh. Mike Lindbergh was commissioner, a venerable commissioner. He worked with Mayor Bud Clark. They ended unsheltered homelessness 30 years ago. We suffered with fortified wine and heroin in Northwest Portland. And the shopkeepers were angry because people were using their doorways as bedrooms and bathrooms like they are today. Bud got in, and he worked with Dan Steffi, his assistant mayor, and said, we need a plan. And they came up with a plan, and they ended unsheltered homelessness. It was a nationally lauded plan. We had people visiting from around the nation to visit Portland, and we all remember those times. We cared for our communities. It was pretty simple. They just used private-public partnerships, 65 of them, set up churches and other facilities, and they cared for everybody at night and then linked them with services during the day. That was it. It's already been done. Dave Beater. So how many of you have heard of a Ninth Circuit case called Martin versus Boise? Angela, Kim. So this case was decided in 2018 in Boise, and it said that it is cruel and unusual punishment to cite somebody if they're homeless for being poor or poverty. And I get that, And so in so doing,
If they have no place to stay.
if they're not provided a shelter.
Yeah.
So Dave lost that case. He's the mayor of Boise. He is the Boise of Martin versus Boise. So everybody uses that when I talk to them. Well, Martin versus Boise says we can't do anything. And I'm like, well, has anybody went and talked to Dave? Has anybody talked to the mayor? So I called him up, and he and I have been friends for years now. He said, Keith, that's a false narrative. Here's what happened in Boise. I lost that case. I had 120 people. No sooner did I lose that case camping outside of City Hall. We've never had that sort of visible camping. We've had it around. He said, so I called in my fire, police, EMTs, homeless service providers, and I had them at my conference table. Ladies and gentlemen, what is going on? Why do we have these encampments around City Hall? Well, Mr. Mayor, we lost that case. We hear that all the time here, don't we? Because of Martin versus Boise. He said, we may have lost that case, but we didn't lose our ability to care for our community. Here's what I want you to do. Now that's leadership. You're going to set up 120 beds. I don't care if they're mats in the hall. I don't care what it is. We're going to care for these individuals. Nobody's sleeping on the street while I'm mayor in Boise. From day 30 down to day 0, he did outreach. He knew every single one of those members on that street. And he said, here's what happened, Keith. At day 0, we broke camp. We're ready to bring these 120 souls inside, and it never happened. 40 of them went back home. And Keith, they went back to Portland, Cheyenne, Salt Lake City, Montana, wherever it was. He says, when you allow camping on your street, you're drawing into that behavior for whatever reason. He says, interesting, the next 40, they went home. They went with friends. Whatever the case may be, when we allowed that tent, they were coming to be with friends or didn't want to be home because of that environment. It's easier sometimes to work out in a tent than it is to be at home. Whatever the reason was, he said, I had to provide 40 beds of the 120 souls. which is interesting because if you remember 3 months ago when we had our severe winter weather, 15 degrees, stay out in that for 15 days, you're going to die. We had people outside of our shelter at the Church of Nazarene just absolutely freezing. We were frightened that they were going to die. And do you recall how many people actually we put up into severe winter shelters? Does anybody recall how many?
It was like 900 and something, I thought. Yeah.
1,300.
Okay.
Remember I said we had 4,000 souls?
Yeah.
It's really more like 500,
But we
5,000.
spent all that time and energy, and then we let them out.
That's
We'll
right.
just see ya.
Yep. And worse than that, Angela, we handed them tents. And said, go out. So you're right. But do you understand what Mayor Beater was saying about a third? You only imagine, look what happened. When you allow the street to be a destination, for whatever reason, it becomes a destination. Not only for your citizens, but from people from outside of the jurisdiction, for whatever reason. Let's not overly talk about the reason. Let's just address the root cause and let's care for those individuals. And they make the decision if they want to stay in Portland or not. So that's Dave. And then Mark Johnson is President Obama's Assistant Secretary to reduce homelessness. So he's been a wonderful advisor for the last 5 years. I've been working with New Orleans, Rockford, Illinois, Gulfport. I've been going to cities that have ended in shelter homelessness. I call it BOBs. You only go to the best of the best. You don't go to LA or Seattle or San Francisco and spend a lot of time because those are called WOWs. Which are the worst of the worst. Even Angela knew that. Do you understand? And those are just standard business practices. You benchmark the best. You box out the worst, and we're the worst now. And you'll see this on the website. We're still working on it. And this is Julie Orlando. I had lunch with her in New Jersey on Thursday. Julie is extraordinary. She uses Built for Zero and Housing First. She ended in sheltered homelessness. She had a bunch of nighttime shelters, and she slowly closed them as she began to really start to reduce homelessness. She has one shelter in Bergen County today. It's across the river from New York City where there are 60,000 homeless people tonight. She has 9. In a highly sought-after community like Multnomah County with affordability issues, she ended homelessness. And she'll be quick to tell you, you cannot end homelessness until you end unsheltered homelessness. You can't do it in that reverse order. Multnomah County has been trying to end homelessness by doing Housing First and housing vouchers, but we've taken our eye off the ball, and the misery on our streets is visible everywhere we go now. Everywhere we go, and it's compromising everybody's livability. The list goes on. Maxine Dexter she is the chair of the Housing and Homelessness Committee for our state legislature. She's my contact into the governor. So we have some of the top people in the nation. Twee Tran's a very good friend of ours. Lisa Gomez is a friend in New York. I've known her for 30 years. She manages 22,000 affordable housing units in New York City. You're saying, well, why do I need those people? Because they know how to rapidly expand affordable housing. They know the rules and the laws, and they're with us, and they've helped me put this blueprint together. So that's the credibility aspect. Now let's talk, the last 2 things I'm going to talk about. Nighttime emergency shelters, and I'm going to show you how they work, and we'll be brief, and then we're going to walk into your questions. I'll talk to you about the county. In 2017, the county changed from mostly nighttime shelters in Portland. That's what we used to shelter, mostly nighttime. They changed the policy and went to 24-hour shelter zone. And if a shelter chose not to move to 24 hours, they defunded them. The Salvation Army Female Emergency Shelter at 2nd and Burnside is sitting empty today, and it's been empty for 5 years. The most horrific things happen to women on the street. I have 126 beds empty today. Bayou Lakes has 143 empty beds right now because they're a high barrier. It's a dogma that we're approaching. We have to recognize, are we here to care for Portlanders? Or are we here only to care for Portlanders if home service providers play our game and our rules? And this is what Mark Johnson, my friend, wrote. There is no regulatory requirement from HUD, because he ran HUD for homelessness. When I asked him, this is what we did, I showed him, he's like, why'd you guys do that? There's no regulatory requirement from HUD or any other federal agency that shelters must operate 24/7. The cost of doing so is understandably very expensive. It requires 3 8-hour shifts rather than 1, and it doesn't add 1 shelter bed. We tripled our cost, and we didn't care for 1 Portlander when we did that. And then I showed you the skyrocketing unsheltered rate. That's why our money is going, it's not going far. But most communities use just nighttime emergency shelters. In Philadelphia tonight, all they have are nighttime emergency shelters. They are at 4 individuals unsheltered tonight out of 10,000. Portland is at 50. We're 10 times the rate that Philadelphia is tonight. And they only have mostly nighttime shelters. Here is our nighttime shelter. So I'll set this up. This is Matt Huff. He's the pastor of the Church of Nazarene. He's allowed us to use his church. You know, I did a test 3-4 years ago at it. It worked. He's been using it as a shelter. It's funded by United Gospel Mission. We lost our funding on March 31st because the head count just fell because everybody was getting tents and they were heading out onto the road to be with friends. Right? It was more convenient to be in a tent with their buddies for whatever reason than it would be to be in life-saving shelter. It's amazing. When we had it 15 degrees, it was packed. We had overflow. I would call them up when a friend would call me in need. Like Mike Lindbergh called me up one day, Commissioner Lindbergh, and said, I need help for a friend. He needs shelter. Mike, why are you calling me? Call the mayor. You know, but he said, I need to get it done. And so Matt and I, we shelter people. It's crazy out there. That's such an upside-down world when you have people calling us instead of the powers that be.
Oh, I understand.
You know what I mean? It just, but our numbers went down. We closed it. So this is just a time-lapse video of how simple it is. This is a church that we're going to use. He has a ping pong club during the day in the mornings. And you're going to see a shelter go from a church, from its normal operating, because it's closed, it's empty at night, but the asset's still there. We have to make our assets sweat. In my business, when I buy a truck, do you think I buy one truck for one application or one shift? No. That truck's going 20 hours a day. And I tell my staff, every time I buy a new truck, I want that asset to sweat. I want it to do 14, 15, 16,000 miles a month. I don't want that horse stopping. Think of a church, an empty church who's struggling with painting the walls, who's struggling with re-roofing, who has a congregate level that's falling. They are perfect for this opportunity. And every time I talk to them, they're like, I'm in. I'm currently talking with Salvation Army to provide 5 of these facilities. And they want to staff them. So it's not a staffing issue. It's not a structure issue. It's a management, it's a capable, and it's a choice that we need to make.
Need the volume up. I've got it over here.
Yeah, the volume of
It's right there.
Oh, I'll start it over.
Walk-in nighttime emergency shelter. Everybody, my name is Keith Wilson, and I'm the chair and founder of Shelter Portland. What I'm going to show you today is a demonstration of how we take an asset or a building that's used during the day, repurpose it at night when it's empty, into life-saving walk-in nighttime emergency shelter. This example is how we're going to end unsheltered homelessness in Portland at low cost, flexible, and immediate, so we can care for every community member, both the housed and the unhoused today in Portland.
Church $4,000 a month, and they love it.
Yeah.
Because they have additional income that they never experienced. Any damage at all, we cover it. It's a win-win-win-win-win for everybody. This works in every emergency. When a catastrophe happens in Portland for earthquake, just think of this as earthquake preparedness. In New Orleans, talking to Mayor Landro, their New Orleans mayor, in one day, he had 250,000 unsheltered residents. He didn't give up and say, just go sleep on the street. He got his community together. Vets cared for vets. If it was a one vet-owned building had hundreds of vets in the building, but they got together and they cared for their community. Isn't that what makes us strong and important in the first place? We haven't quit. You're here tonight. You're crazy. Put it that way. Now let's talk about the costing. And then when we go on the day shelter, again, you can read on this. Here's the costing. But won't it cost a lot of money? So Matt and I, our proof point, $16.30 per person per night. When you look at a Safe Rest Village, which is the third to the right, $189 per person per night. Matt is sheltering somebody. If we had the funding, we didn't. It's not a lot of funding. Sheltering souls for 8% of the cost of what the city is doing it for. Doesn't that take your breath away? Simple care, and then think about, now let's talk about the disaggregated cost. The mayor said the other day that unsheltered homelessness is impacting his budget at $300 million a year. How do you get there? $23 million just in camp cleanup. Do you know for $23 million we can end unsheltered homelessness?
Yes.
I had a meeting with Jessica Vega Peterson yesterday morning. We were going through the budget. I was asking her for help. I was explaining to her, I'm mayor.
Stop laughing, Mary.
When I'm mayor in that first week, it's not time to start talking, Jessica. We're talking right now. And so she and I were going over the budget on what's necessary. We don't have time to wait because those are my neighbors. Those are my high school classmates out there. So we're going back and forth on the budget. What do you want to cover? Tell me what I need to do because I need to go to council and ask for a special interim budget action. I need to know how much and when. So we've agreed to continue to talk. So when you think about it, it's not a lot of money. $23 million in camp cleanup could end unsheltered homelessness here in Portland. That just take your breath away. $25 million in firefighter overtime, and they are so beat up. They are going to PTSD 30-day inpatient. They are losing their purpose because they're doing Narcan and overdose reversal 10 per day. Your police officers, $10 million in overtime. We spend $1 million in handing out tents. We spend $10 million in warrants per year that we know the individual is going to get a fine. We're finding a homeless person who's never going to pay a fine. The insanity of the whole process just begs for us to approach it from a humane standpoint. We shouldn't be arresting. We should just be simple care. And every community in the nation is doing this.
Keith, I just want to point out that $189 per night.
Per night.
So that basically tells me that someone's making money from this.
Urban Alchemy.
So that tells me there's no incentive to stop it.
The other thing is that you should know this, you're doing a great job. I didn't want you to, but you're doing a great job. I didn't know, that's why I showed up. I'm kidding. You should know that these housing vouchers are I have it on video and I will be releasing it. They're literally selling these to people that are trafficking girls for money for people to use fentanyl. It's happening.
Yeah.
I haven't
It's
heard
awful.
that. Angela, I wish I could push back and say that's not rational, but
I believe you that.
Anything is rational.
I know. Every corner I turn, I learn. And I speak to, I know Mark Joel, and I know Deborah Ford. I know all these people, and they're good people. But we've made a lot of bad decisions, and now we just need to course correct. But that's what we're here to talk about. We're here to course correct. We're not here to talk about the past. We're here to talk about the future.
Keith, one of the big things is that 189. This guy's absolutely right.
Yeah.
It's never going to end. People are making money.
People are making
They don't
money.
want to fix the
That's
problem.
why it keeps going on.
Well, a Safe Rest Village, one of those little pods?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
55,
Ridiculous.
55, even
Yeah,
Charlotte,
yeah.
$55,000.
You could do a tough
So is
shift.
the guy making the pods? Yeah,
Oh,
because
yeah.
we probably called him
Oh,
up.
yeah.
He had America Rescue Plan Act money.
Uh-huh.
I need him, and I need him in 90 days. And the guy's thinking, okay,
Oh, yeah.
I got that. I'll take care of it.
Yeah.
Here's the little, I don't care. I'm getting yelled at by my community to do something. Well, do something when you have an awful lot of money means you're not going to make a pragmatic, cost-effective.
Go to
Don't get me
Home
wrong. I
Depot.
want everybody to know, Dan Ryan's a high school friend of mine. At least he did something. Let's be clear. Dan Ryan acted. He did something. I'm going to compliment him for that, right? But we can't end unsheltered homelessness at $189. So let's be aware of that. That's not setting up tiny villages.
Keith, can I
not-
step forward a bit? I think everyone in this room appreciates your great presentation, and these numbers are things we didn't know or we had a sense about. I kind of want to jump to a couple things because I got to go home.
Oh, go for it, sure.
My neighbor, Mark Dahl, was on the news. He was crying about what's happening on Knapp Street.
This is Knapp Street here.
Yeah.
Right behind, yeah.
For us, it's 20 years of this. This
And
is
it's
not new.
cleared up pretty well today.
They tagged
They tag.
Tagging is the 8th and towing is the 15th, and they all know it. But I have the schedule. But what happened is the news then went down there, and they interviewed the people along the Peabot part of the street, and then the city part of the street, and then the street part of the street, which is all different entities monitoring these places. But the number one thing they all said is, I don't want to go to a shelter. I would rather be here. How would you address that? They would rather do their fentanyl open on the street. The black Mercedes drives up every night. I know what time they're going to show up. He unrolls his window and he does the drug deal.
All right. Karen, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay, Karen, here's how it works. Martin versus Boise again. So Martin versus Boise requires us to have a shelter for that person, or we're unable to enforce our laws. So when I rode with the police officers, we arrested a guy who had just arrived from Florida.
They were offered a shelter.
Sure, they were.
They
but-
said no to going to the shelter.
That's right.
We don't have metrics of how many there are, so therefore we're not
So
enforcing
what
it.
do you
He's
do with
saying
them when
we
they
always
say
have them.
no?
Well, the same people on NAP during the winter storm, I drove down there to check on them. And they were given an option to go to the shelter
Right.
down on Oster and 82nd. They
But
didn't go.
let me provide you the answer.
Okay.
All right. So that is an unregistered, unlicensed, uninsured, inoperable, and unregistered vehicle. It's one of those 5, which clearly makes
Correct.
it an out of compliant vehicle. We know by law it's supposed to be impounded.
Mhm.
Generally, that's it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right, as a trucking company, I'll tell you. Now, the reason why it's not is because Martin versus Boise, we don't have a shelter bed. So we consider that vehicle a primary residence. Absent
Yes.
ample shelter, it's primary, and so we
It
don't
could be
tow
a
it.
stolen car.
So now
and
let's
they still
fix
get
this.
to live in it.
So Karen, here's how we fix it. We provide an ample enough shelter. That's it. Overnight, we have to provide those 4,000 shelters. Now, Karen, we notify this guy, hey, we're impounding your vehicle. I don't want it to be impounded. Hey, it's no longer a primary residence. We've flipped that script. That's what we're going to do. And we have to do it that way, Karen.
But they're offered places now.
It doesn't matter. The
Okay.
law states if I can provide enough shelter beds, it's no longer your primary residence.
That's what they were offered shelter and they said no.
Because we don't offer shelter enough for the entire city.
Oh, that's the different part of the story. Yes, and these were tent people that were
Yeah,
interviewed.
even off the, because you can elect to stay or not,
Uh-huh.
because it's presumed that, well, it's going to go to somebody else. But in this case, that's why I said at the very beginning, we set up enough shelter so there's at least one empty bed a night. That's the key part right there.
Okay, now I want to
So they
address
can't say no?
They can't say no, and our laws now apply.
Okay.
The vehicle.
Do we have to
impound-
wait for the, the grants pass?
No, the grants pass isn't going to change.
The news said we had to wait till the Supreme Court made a decision on grants pass before it could be implemented. They said that at KGW tonight.
If
Karen,
you have enough places for them to stay, to sleep, the whole list, it's null and void. It's
That's
always
right.
been that way, which is why there's people that have been mad that the county doesn't have.
I'm not
a database.
negating any of
Yeah.
this. I'm trying
No,
to get a
no,
chronological order of
No, it's okay.
what can happen and what will happen.
Look, Karen, I'm not satisfied with the answer. So, this person that's been offered shelter
Mhm.
refuses shelter.
Mhm.
We're gonna have that 99 out of 100 people where I live, they're gonna refuse, even though it's available.
So what happens to him when he says no?
the car gets impounded.
But it's
But
not
he's
hard to
in it
check.
because he said no.
You know what? All right, so let's go back to Boise. I'm not going to give you an opinion. Let me tell you what happened. So Boise, has anybody been to Boise lately?
It's pretty clean.
Oh my gosh, it's like Disneyland.
Yeah, it's like, yeah.
So I asked Mayor Beater that same question, but what happens if the guy doesn't want to get out of his tent? What happens if the guy doesn't want to get out of his RV? That's what you're asking.
I am.
Yeah.
I said, are you willing to arrest? He says, yes, my officers will arrest. But here's the thing, Keith. When you go up and you're asking and providing them help, these are just good people that are suffering from addiction, right? When you ask them help, now you don't give them a choice.
Not here on Liz.
No, they said they thought I said on the news. I have a copy of it. I would rather stay and do my fentanyl.
I
He
understand.
wasn't
But
wearing any
that's not
shoes.
his choice anymore.
Yeah, it's not
That's
his
what he's
choice,
saying.
Karen.
But we've got Antifa, we've got anarchists, we've got criminals. There's no way in hell, unless they're forced in their shelter out of Portland, they're gonna abide by it.
Let me go back and tell you the story. So Mr. Mayor, what'd you do? He says, yes, my officers will arrest. But here's the thing, Keith. I only had to cite 3 people in the entire year. I know we do want to do whataboutism, but you guys, just care for your neighbors. And if one or two has to be pulled out of an RV, I get that. We don't want to do that, Karen. But that
I want
may-
you to do it.
We do want you to do it.
I want you.
Yeah,
I voted for
I know,
that.
Karen, I'm just telling you, Karen, we're gonna set up enough shelter, and we're going to impound the vehicles.
Okay, wait. So I need to finish my other part of the story.
Sure.
I love the Nazarene story. I think it's a fantastic one. Also, the Church of the Nazarene has no neighbors around it.
Yep.
They are in a pristine place to do this. They
We're
have
here
their
talking
own
about day
cause.
shelters now, right?
I'll tell you what, I will cut you off at the knees if you use this church as a place to stay. There has been so much crime here, it's taken me 20 years to fight. I got the gates put in, I got the lights put in. I don't belong to this church.
I have plenty, Karen, I have plenty of other facilities
Right.
because people want to
How about
participate
Lloyd
in this.
Center or
Well,
something?
Karen,
that's-
you've hit my two biggest questions.
But remember, you guys, we've ended unsheltered homelessness. There's no more tents, makeshift shelters, or RVs on the street. If we're caring for somebody at night, that's just good.
They have to want to.
So when he
Keith-
leaves in the
Keith-
morning, is he gonna get a tent on the way out the door?
No. We have day shelters, and that's what we're here to talk about.
Okay.
Is I had to open up, because keep in mind, a nighttime shelter is just a roof.
Yeah.
The
Right.
day shelter is connection to the home, to recovery, to mental illness, because we have a tremendous issue with mental illness and addiction here.
Okay.
We have to be able to link people. This is what's called a warm handoff. But we need, keep in mind, in a normal functioning society, not Portland, 53% of the people that are in shelter are working the next day. They're serving your coffee, your lunch. That's Philadelphia, that's Boise.
That's not Portland.
That's not Portland.
They ain't working.
That's normal.
So let's go
It's
back
not
to
giving a
Karen's.
tent on the way and a
So
sleeping bag on the way out the door.
I'm not satisfied
Yeah.
with the answer to Karen's first question, but let's skip to the second question. We do not want these in our neighborhoods, because what you're doing is you're taking it from our front yards and you're putting it in our backyards permanently.
As far
As far as any of these shelters.
well,
Like
that's,
the RV place on 82nd, that guy had the drugs in her front yard, now you put it in her backyard. It's not, doesn't solve her PTSD, her economic hardship, her mental or psychological problem that the city's created. The city creates chaos. We're tired of the chaos.
Trevor, in that movable
Todd.
structure.
No, Trevor's an
No.
inside
okay,
joke.
Outside of
sorry.
his house, he has a movable shed that John, his dad from Seattle, brought down to him.
Oh, okay, got it.
We have to take that away. That's a makeshift shelter. I have to remove that. Trevor's going to be left out on the street. Trevor's suffering. He's mental illness. He's Trevor. He's living outside of Todd's house. His
Yes.
father brought him a movable
Yes.
shed.
Yeah.
So when the area gets posted, Trevor moves it onto the multi-use
Yeah.
path. We can't have that.
But the problem isn't that he's unsheltered, the problem is he's in a drug addiction.
We understand that, but here's the thing, Karen. We encourage that by allowing John, his father, to bring a shed down, which is against our codes. If Trevor wants to sleep on the street exposed in the rain, which is brutal, I guarantee you he's going to seek
No, they
support.
don't. The guy down here, I took a guy with a blanket barefooted in the snow.
I agree.
Dude, I called, I said I need a welfare check on a guy who was they blabble. They're not even aware they're in snow.
Karen, I'm with you. I know that.
The lady in
Matt
the
will tell
tent
you
with the
stories.
dog.
She's
Yeah.
gonna take her tent away,
They took the
I
tent
got a
away.
question.
and then he's gonna
I
take her
have
to the
a
shelter.
question and a comment. I'll do the question first. So my question is that
And Matt, you
you're-
can jump in here anytime.
No, yeah, I get this big
don't
picture.
believe
It's
it.
beautiful.
my daughter?
I'm doing real-time issues that happen
you
every day.
you are, and we haven't met before, so please forgive me. But you're also like, I'm gonna help you, I think. So just give me, I mean, like,
The only person
there's
that's
a
ever
lot to
helped
be
me-
upset
The
about
only
here.
person, I got kicked out of a meeting here with Dan Ryan, because the only person that helps me is me. And I have fought with Shar, I have fought with the church, I have fought with the police, they're on speed dial, Peabody. How can there be $1 billion the city of Portland to fight unsheltered homelessness, houselessness, and Peabody have to cut their officers? This disconnect, it comes from the ivory tower, and the people you're
That's
meeting
what
with are
he's
going to be your roadblocks. How will you stop them from continuing to be the people to say no? I want you to say yes.
Karen, here's the thing. I'm being very clear with everybody what I'm going to do. You either vote for me or you don't, because it's going to be a hard job. I know how to get through and I know how to do hard jobs. I passed a bill in the legislature last year with all Republican votes and all Democrat votes.
I'm going to vote for you. I want you to be the one who
Karen,
What
solves the
bill?
You're-
problem.
What bill? 4002? What bill?
It was 3590. It was taking our forest residual that we burn and converting it into crude oil.
Cool.
Okay.
Because we burn it right now. All that burn comes over Portland, and it adds to our
There are
respiratory
so
disease.
many issues for us to talk about with you, with the mayor. I mean, burning, the
But I'm going-
fires that are happening are causing climate disasters. They're burning up lumber. They're killing the animals. I mean, the whole thing's a joke. So, getting back to Karen's questions.
Good job. Yeah, you know, Karen, if you're looking for a silver bullet, it's gonna be hard work.
No, I
Yeah.
believe in survival of the fittest. I'm sorry, I'm the first person that'll say,
Karen.
don't take the 10 away. I'm the first person to say take the 10 away. In fact, I
Yeah.
said it 20 years ago.
Karen, we're taking the 10 away.
Take the 10 away. But oh wait,
And we're taking the RV away.
but it's the
And we're
snowball.
taking
So I go to Kitty Cat Condos on 33rd. They have a 200 RV problem over there. And then the cars that they're living in are being stolen from Vancouver because the people know if they steal a car in Washington, they can live in Oregon and nothing will be done to them.
We're addressing that, Karen. Karen, remember now, our police officers who are spending half their time arresting the unsheltered are not
No,
spending
I
half
don't,
their
that
time.
number's kind of weird to me. But anyway, like talking about the firefighters, they were having people that were medically trained doing the fentanyl and doing the shots. Narcan. The firefighters don't want to go do it. But then the city says, you have to.
So
And
we
then,
need
but then wait. And so when they get there, the people on the street already have the Narcan and they've already given it to the person who refuses to go to the hospital.
So Karen, we have to restore public safety. So remember the 35% are homeless upon arrival that came here? And what Mayor Beater said, he said a third are going to leave. Our public safety servants are overwhelmed.
They are.
We immediately get to...
I want to hire more. I
Really,
want more
Karen,
police. I want more 911
yes, but
operators.
remember, there's two ways. We either hire more or we work them less.
He's
I'm
giving
talking
you
about
a
working them
solution
less,
here.
Karen.
That's
Do you understand? If
Well,
they're...
they can't hire more. They don't want to work here.
Karen,
He's giving
Karen,
you
hold
a
on.
solution.
Remember, 35% of all the people in Portland are homeless upon arrival.
I know that.
Mayor
They're being
Beater-
paid to come here.
Karen, hold on. And the mayor gave us the answer. He said, when I ended unsheltered homelessness, a third left.
Yeah.
It means our
They
officers
went to
aren't...
Vancouver, and then they kicked them out of Vancouver, and they went up to Ridgefield. They're the same people.
What Keith is saying is that with his policies, a third of the homeless will leave Portland.
We'll go back to where
They
came
came
from.
here because we hand out tents.
Right.
We're allowed to be
Well,
here.
Well, he's not gonna hand out tents anymore.
I got that part. But they're still gonna steal RVs and bicycles and cars.
Well, that's,
But
you know,
my
nothing's
officers will
100%.
have more
Okay.
time to find those individuals and arrest
My
them.
next question is,
Hey Karen, you have
if
to-
you arrest somebody, the DA doesn't prosecute, and we don't have enough
It's the judges,
DAs.
not the DA.
Well, we don't have enough DAs, and they're paid horribly.
And
And we also don't have enough beds.
Again, we're arresting fewer people, Karen, because we're not.
Yeah, I
gonna
don't
just-
think you should arrest anybody, but that's my point. What is going to be the punishment? You're gonna die on the
Karen,
street?
if I'm not arresting people, there's not a punishment. Remember, half of all arrests are the unsheltered. If you don't have unsheltered living in tents and makeshift shelters and in RVs, you're not arresting as many people, and your system works well. It's called addressing what's called a
But
bottleneck.
they will find a way to stay on the street.
Karen, I'm so sorry. I'm not.
Karen, you're gonna let somebody else go. I will.
Okay,
It sounds
can we,
like-
can we finish up the presentation?
Well, we were.
Yeah, I think we're very close, right?
Yeah, we are. The day shelter is where we were at. I'm here just to answer. And again, I told everybody it's ad hoc. I usually have a big presentation, but I just want to talk about day shelter. And Angela, I wanted to kind of ask her. So we have. Oh, Angela's right there.
Sorry, I like this seat. It's
No, it is coming. I want that seat too. So essentially, what we set up is I've been working with shelters in Amsterdam. They used to be Portland in the 80s. If you've ever been to Portland, they were the heroin magnet of Europe. They decriminalized all drugs, just like Portland did. And when they did that, Europe and all the drug trade and users went into Amsterdam. Sounds like Portland. Tents in the parks, garbage everywhere, property crime. It was unsafe in the 80s. So they had to reconcile with that as well. And they did that by creating what are called neighborhood teams or day shelters. There's 8 or 9 of them in different districts. And that's how they link people to services. And in turn, they don't allow camping anymore. And if so, camping, anybody in care, the only people that are cared for in Amsterdam, you have to be a Netherlands citizen now. Or you're living out on the street exposed. That's how they ended unsheltered homelessness. Because they used to allow people in tents from Greece, from Germany, the drug trade, right?
Yeah.
Sounds like Portland, doesn't it? What we're experiencing is not new.
No.
And the challenges have been done and solved before. But now they did something very unique. They created day shelters. And the day shelter can be for somebody outside of the country. They're for everybody. And they're going to connect you with a ride home, reunification, behavioral health, addiction, work, non-standard work. They'll pay 1 hour for you to go and clean up the neighborhood, which is what we do at my shelter. Work Systems gives us several $1,000s to allow individuals who are addicted to do dopamine replacement. When you work, it's very satisfying when you do something for a community. That's what we're doing. County doesn't do that. And then we set up a safety zone. This is modeled off of the Embarcadero. So I noticed near Fisherman's Wharf, they had a big navigation center. And I thought, wow, there's no tents around. They're policing, they're cleaning it up because the agreement was clear. If you're going to put this navigation center in the middle of Fisherman's Wharf, Embarcadero, one of our world's most iconic locations, you're going to manage it. There can't be loitering, there can't be tents, and it's well managed. So I set up the day shelter with that same safety zone. And if you come into our shelter, we'll provide you services for 7 days. If you're in a tent in that 15 square block area, we won't be providing service because the community has provided us the opportunity to have the shelter in your community. Every shelter that we have here in Portland that we open at the turn of the year will have this safety zone. It will be safer, better policed. There'll be no more tents on the road. There'll be no more RVs. You won't even know these nighttime shelters are there. Now that's probably a bit of an embellishment. But my overall point is that if you come to our shelter, I give tours at the Church of Nazarene, and people are always amazed when the guests are going into the bathroom, because we stand outside and we'll talk to people who want to see it. They're most respectful, thankful, appreciative people, especially women and such. But when you're allowing your street to become this ad hoc parallel universe of unsafe crime and trafficking, we've created what we're getting. But when people now know they're coming to Portland, you're going to be in a shelter or you're going to be sleeping on a sidewalk. If you're sleeping in a business's doorway, you're going to be moved out of it because a shopkeeper cannot have people living in a doorway at all, ever. That's against the law. If you want to sleep out exposed, we get it. That's your prerogative. But you're not going to be impacting a shopkeeper's revenue, their livelihood, or a residential area with a tent or next to a school. That's all going away. It has to. There's no short way around it.
So have you talked to Jessica?
And I'm done, so let's ask questions.
Jessica Vega-Peterson about handing out tents?
I did. I spoke to her
harm
yesterday about
reduction,
it.
all that stuff that brings
She
them
says
here?
they have no other sheltering strategy. And so that's what
not
they're
a
doing.
strategy.
It's not a solution. It is what it is, you guys. That's what we're left with now. So now our job is to solve it.
So
Now, when you- oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you guys, we got kind of
in order for you to enforce,
What's that?
in order for the police to enforce the laws, there has to be a certain number of beds available per
That's
night,
right.
right? So what is that number, first of all?
So I was talking to Jessica yesterday. The point in time says, so of course, Willie Chopson is on my team. I'll be working with the ACLU, the Oregon Criminal. I'm talking to them now because I don't want to get litigated in January, February. So I'm telling you, here's what and I asked them, what's the number? I said, I want to use the point in time count, Multnomah County, because it's 3944. Jessica yesterday, Chair Peterson, well, it's more like 5,600. I said, just tell me the number. Just tell me what number and I'll get there. Because I know only a third of the people are going to actually come in.
Right.
For 90 days, if you need 5,600 beds, for 90 days, picture an earthquake.
Right.
I will grab community centers, Church Salvation Army Moore Street Community Center.
Right.
By fire marshal allows us to put 250 people in there. I know only 50 are going to show up.
Right.
But I'll have it staffed and ready to go. I've already talked to the Portland Bureau of Emergency Management. The NET team operator is going to activate 1,100 volunteers to help me on April 1st.
So that's the point. So you reach that 5,600.
Boom, and then I ramp it down.
And by doing that, you can enforce the laws.
That's right.
And 35% of the people leave.
That's right, and a third of them will go back home.
Right.
We're going to be at Laurelhurst next Friday, and
Right.
when Laurelhurst had 100 tents outside.
Oh,
the park,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So if you read the articles, here's what one guy said when they interviewed him. Yeah, I'm not going to go to Sunnyside. I don't want to go there. I'm just going to go back home. I live down the street. I live with my parents. I don't like them, so I'm living in a tent. Did you understand about the third are going to go back home locally? Right? He was a read that article. He's a college educated, living at home, wanted to be on the street. Now that's not everybody. That was his story. Again, there are 4,000 people, 4,000 stories. So we care for all 4,000. If there's only 1,300 people, then we ramp it down as fast as we can. How many extra beds do I need a night to meet Martin versus Boise? One. And I'm smart enough to know that you flex up, when the emergency is tamed, you flex down. And then you get down to that level. And we help with reunifications, with calling people up in Austin and Chicago. You hook them up with their mothers, whatever the case may be. Reunification, we're working like Dickens. I had breakfast with the chief operating officer of Rose Festival. And I said, in 2025, we're going to have the Mayor's Ball. And we're going to have the best revitalized party we've ever had. Because we're not celebrating on November 6th, the day after my election. We're not celebrating on January 2nd at my inauguration. It's go time. It's work time. There's no celebration in our town. Not when people are going to die. What questions do you have on day shelter?
I was wondering how the mayor of the city of Portland is going to be able to work with Montgomery County.
They're good. Remember, if county chooses not to fund it, I have 400 people dying. I'm doing this with or without them. We cannot wait. We cannot put the safe. Remember, as mayor, I'm in charge of public safety. That is my job. Public safety, infrastructure, and right of way. County's in charge of health and human services. Public safety. When someone dies on my streets, it is my responsibility. I'm not advocating. What we're experiencing is an application of leadership in Portland. Failed leadership day in and day out. Failed policies. You just asked a question.
I just wanted to ask how I can help you become mayor.
I'll give you a card. Oh, gee, I should not have.
Do you have any polls? Is there any polling on the mayor's race as far as?
It's all money right now, Todd. Because it's called small donors election, nobody has a lot of money. So it's all about how many donations we get and dollars we get.
No, but is there any polling, like who's doing well?
No.
Well,
They cost about 30 grand in Portland.
For Shanto, we don't have 30 nobody has it because it's small donors election.
Let's talk about
right now. I've got 60 grand. I'm just about caught up with Mingus and Carmen. I've got more cash flow than all of them except for Renee. I want you to help me today. If you want to support, then
But do you have any idea where you stand as far as?
Not mayors.
I would be fourth. I would be fourth if you took a poll right now. No one knows who I am, Todd. But I have 6 months to have these meetings, right? Right.
But if there's
What kind of security or law
yeah.
enforcement requirements are there? Do we have enough resources to man those shelters?
We won't. Medium barrier, there will be no security. So Matt has tried low barrier and medium barrier. A medium barrier, remember, a lot of people are working the next day, right? A medium barrier means that the doors close at 11, and if you're doing fentanyl and you walk out that door, you're not getting back in because it's a safe sleep location. No security is necessary. We don't have security at that one. Now, at a low barrier, when someone's actively in their meth or something like that, I would almost be certain we're going to have security at that one.
Okay, so there's different types of shelters?
Yeah, there's 3 types, low, medium, and high. High means it's clean and sober.
Okay.
Medium means you can be addicted, but if you're actively in your addiction, you walk out that door at 11, you're not getting back in because it's a quiet place. We had a guy outside of the shelter 2 months ago who was actively in the meth crisis. We didn't even let him in. We would cart that person over to a low barrier. Right? But you're not going to be in a tent. You're not going to be in an RV, right?
How many volunteers do you need for like the low and medium? Do you have?
County requires 25, requires a staffing ratio of 1 to 25. I know way too much. I know that because of my costing. I know what my costing is, and we pay $27 per hour. I mean, it is. We're not cheap.
Not volunteers.
This is not Our paid staff will be 1 to 25. The volunteer staff at the front and the back side is going to be for just setting it up and knocking it out.
Are you going to be training them, or are these people coming out of?
Well, Net's already trained. I'm a Net. I'm a neighborhood emergency team. I'm an earthquake preparedness person. I'm trained. So if there's an earthquake, I know where the 2-way radios are in my neighborhood. I get on my my vest, and I'm helping rescue. I'm a Net. There's 1,100. We're highly trained. I'm saying.
But the people you're paying $27 an hour are
those are professionals. Well, no, they're not all professionals. They're peer support specialists. They're individuals there to help the guests out, right?
So, do you need like a degree or?
No, not really.
So like somebody like me could be hired.
Yeah.
Like, I filled out the resume and I
absolutely
have an arrest on my record.
Yeah. Remember, we're just community members helping community. Girl in the back.
Angela. I have 200,000 followers. You should remember my name. I'm messing around. So I had those questions and a comment. So what I find interesting about this is that up till now, the conversation has been, what's the county doing because they're responsible for human services? And then the city sort of got involved with the shelters because they got some ARPA money, COVID money, right? And so Dan Ryan was like opening up these shelters and spending a whole bunch of money to ramp it up before the money came out in December. So my question is, I know this is a long question, but I want you to understand that I understand some things. So JOHS, it's a Joint Office of Homeless Services, county completely runs it. The only thing you have to do to dissolve it is stop paying for it, and there's like a halfway penalty for the payment. Is that the money you're looking at to do this? Where are you planning on getting your money to pay these churches? Because so far you told me $7,000 a month, which I'm curious where that's coming from. If he's getting 4, and if the place by my place, St. Peter Paul Church, is getting 3, that's $7,000. And I know that's peanuts, but I'm saying all of this plan, where are you getting city money for this? And how do you have the? Can I please finish? I haven't asked my question. Okay, so so I'm saying there's all this allocation to where you can't send, and I'm trying to figure out, Keith, like where you are grabbing this money and how you're getting cooperation from people that, as the mayor, you don't have authority to do.
Over.
You know what I'm saying? Currently.
Sure, but I would have to look at city council. So the first week is to declare a public safety emergency, and I'll be working with counselors. So I'm in these meetings a lot with our city councilors, and I'm already starting to talk to them. This is your first thing. I'm convening an emergency. I want all 13 of us on the same page. Then, and I've been working with mayors on this, Angela. So then we'll put in an interim budget action, and that action will probably be $5 to $10 million. That's to start out. So if we were to staff 4,000 beds for 12 months, it would cost $23 million. The truth is, remember I said we have to be one. How many beds do we need plus? One.
Plus one.
But it's going to cycle down. So by the end of that 12-month cycle, Angela, the overall burden cost for that year is going to be like $13 million. And this is all budget. I'll probably put it online. And that's why I was working with Chair Baker Peterson yesterday. She knows the cost of the day shelters. I'm asking her to take the day shelter cost because it's Health and Human Services. County likes Health and Human Services, and that's what a day shelter is. But the nighttime shelter, whether they pay or not, I would prefer for JOH to pay. But absent them paying, we're going to act. And I feel confident they're going to be with us. Because it's not a heavy lift cost-wise. If you did 16...
I got that. So,
yes.
so the answer is, that the short answer, but it's good that you told the pieces of it, is that you need to collaborate with a lot of people
Absolutely.
to make sure that this can move. And that would be specifically, you need votes from the city council people, and you also need the cooperation of the county.
I'm hopeful, but I can't speak for county, but I'm acting, Angela.
Right, that's fair. I just wanted to understand the mechanism.
Yeah.
That second part question or comment for you, and you take this for what you want, Keith, but I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to ask you about your Constitution, and then I'm going to comment. There's a lot of people in this city that get involved in this, and they think, well, I'm a nice person. I'm a reasonable person. This is what I want to do, and I'm good-hearted. And so I'm not going to have problems with people that are violent. We've had people's cars blown up. We've had people's homes vandalized. We've had lives threatened. I'm one of those people, by the way. And I'm a redhead, but I'm a nice redhead because I'm 50. But I'm telling you, if you like this whole like, okay, you're going to need to go here, or this is what happens. If you're seen as the leader of that, there is a constitution that you are going to have because it is hard. And a lot of people, I think one of the things for me, quite frankly, being concerned and saying I'm going to come is that some of the people that you're associating with, and you know what, I think you're smart. You're just saying, look, it doesn't matter. We're a whole community. Let's come together and stop everybody suffering. I got that, and I love that. On the other hand, like, there's a lot of narrative that everybody out there is suffering. So I just wanted to like comment to you that this is not for the faint of heart. And this is dangerous work. Not only out there with one person and whatever the stuff's going on at Todd's house, but I'm saying like you know, to be somebody who's. So I just want you to be aware of that. You've got to have a hell of a constitution.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, let me answer that with a story. So we had our neighbors at our house 3 months ago, when I was getting ready to reconcile. And they kind of know what I was prepping. But we talked to them first, because we wanted to know what their thoughts were. Because when you do what I'm asking to do, we know there's going to be problems, Angela.
Yeah, okay.
So we had a conversation with them, and they're concerned. They're alarmed. And so here's what they said. They said, we're frightened for our kids. We're frightened. And it was my wife who answered them, and they said, it's getting so bad though. It's not on our street yet. But if it is on our street and we don't act, it's going to be on everybody's street.
That's right.
And so so she said, who's going to do it? And what are they going to do? And when are they going to do it? Because it's only getting worse for every community. And she said, if it's not on our street, at least while we're trying to fix it, it will be on our street at some point if we don't do something. So she said, you know, I know Keith. I know what I've been on this for 6 years, living in shelters, sleeping in parking garages. And I've asked my wife to come to the parking garage and sleep outside. She said no. But I've steel-toed boots in the car.
Just to see what it's like, is that what you're saying?
I've been setting up shelters. I've been at this for 6 years trying to figure out the lowest cost solution, the most humane solution. And what I've developed to you, it's not perfect. I'm sure I'm 80% right, Angela, but I'm smart enough to fix it.
Yeah, you're going to have to.
Absolutely. It's not linear.
Of course, correct.
Matt has been a shelter operator throughout the United States. My executive director, pardon me, my board of directors are only executive directors for homeless service providers in Portland. I've got the best of the best who are ready to set it up. They're helping me with the budget. They're ready to go. They're not a bunch of people who are CEOs in corner offices of medical supply companies. If you look at Shelter Portland, go to your board of directors. Lance Orton just agreed to be a board member today. He runs the city team.
What are Tweetron's qualifications for that work?
She's my neighbor.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
She calls me. Yeah, she calls me into. Her neighbors are upset, and they call me for shelters. And I like Tweet. I was just at a party with her the other day. I like Tweet. She is. But Maxine was very intentional.
You're in House District 46?
No. 43?
45?
I don't know.
Okay,
Should know.
Tweet's 20,
I don't
45.
know.
45. Okay.
But
I said it wrong.
the reason why Maxine is the Housing and Homelessness Chair. Mark Gammer's the Vice Chair. I asked Mark, do you want to be on? He says, I want to, and I said, let me talk to Maxine first. And
Tweet
she
was
said,
the only question I had.
yeah, thank you, good job. But yeah, she's a friend, and yeah.
Okay, cool, thank you.
Let me grab.
Nobody's talked anything about their pets and the service animals,
We accept
which
them.
is
We accept them
a
all.
big concern for me.
We accept them all.
Okay.
Yeah. If we take all friends, whether they are human or animal. And what's really cool about our shelters, the nighttime shelters, when you go to a congregate shelter, you're given a bunk, and your friends aren't going to be next to you. And you need your community closer. Our nighttime shelters are super cool, because you saw the mats, right? So imagine 3 women. That's their protective group. We want them to be close together. You'll see them come in, grab the mats, and go into the corner together. And now what we're doing is we're slowly picking them off. It's warm in here. We give you a light meal. We're trying to do outreach to them when they're in the shelter. We're trying to help them out of that circumstance. There are, I'm telling you guys, when you see a woman with a fella and they're living outside, there's domestic violence going on.
Oh, yeah.
So let's not kid ourselves. Being in a tent, it's horrific. At least we have a chance to start pulling that woman away now. Hey, it's warm in here, right? Do you know what I mean? It's very intentional. I mean, we're really working. We don't want people in, remember, it's called an emergency shelter. It's a disaster. It's disaster recovery when you're in a nighttime shelter. There's nothing good. We don't want people in there. So we need to work hard to stop that outcome.
Okay, I live in Westmoreland. When I came here in 2016, and I should preface that by saying I returned to the city, not the city I knew, in 2016. A new shelter was being put in on Milwaukee. It was supposed to be a women's shelter. Of course, that didn't work because the women wouldn't go in unless the men went with them. So the men went with them. I went into that shelter and they're all drunk. There's beer cans at the reception desk in the garbage can. I caught a bus outside there one morning and 2 people got in. This is just anecdotal stuff, that's not my real question. Exited the building, a man and a woman, and she was so loaded she probably needed Narcan and got on the bus and whatever. Okay, my question is, are you going to double the police force to deal with the leftist reaction to this? Because it's going to, I think it's going to be like George Floyd again. They're going to get so upset. I know because my neighbors, they're going to be upset.
There were
and
less,
they'll burn it down.
There were less black bloc people.
Let me just say, they're looking for an excuse. They're looking for an excuse. This is a global Marxist thing. I'm from Britain. I see what's going on in Europe. Why do you think they're all rising in Britain right now? Because the leftists have infiltrated the Gaza people. And now that, you ask people who are, it's very complicated.
Go ahead. What's your question?
But you know, I'm from San Francisco before this, and I don't know if you've walked through San Francisco recently. I did like a week ago, and you go through the Tenderloin. It's just like these videos you see of Vancouver or Seattle, of people falling over. Okay, so maybe Fisherman's Wharf is cleaned up, but that's because not only was that an open-air drug market, but you had young kids acting out. And if you make it attractive, people come, because that's what happened to San Francisco. When I left San Francisco, we were spending $6 billion a year on homeless. We're going to clean it up. It's 10 times worse now, and they're coming from all over the East Bay to sell their drugs.
I feel you.
No, I really don't think they do.
But
because
doing
it has to
nothing,
be.
but doing nothing is not a course of action.
I really think it needs to be El Salvador stuff. I do.
You know, this is the richest city.
Let
in
them
the
move to San Francisco. Why do we care?
I'm not from, I was originally from here.
I'm just
Go
saying,
down there.
if 30% of them are going to leave, why do we care where they go?
Oh, yeah,
Just as long as they leave. Let
But they
whoever other city deal with their own crap. If they don't want to put in a program, that's their problem.
Let's go back and look at communities that have already done this. Boise, it's beautiful. And
Oh, it's
30%
it's
of
lovely.
So we had a narcotics cop here at one meeting, and he had that morning found the first boat, which is a special bag of 5,000 pills of fentanyl in a tent right near here.
Your answer is right there.
It was rainbow fentanyl, all the little candy colours that they look. And it was, let me just say this, it's the first time he'd ever seen a gun in a tent on his drug bust. So now there's guns everywhere, and that's in just a year.
So what's the answer then? We aren't going to have tents. We're not going to have the guns. But we have to do this all at once. You can't. You can't do it this in piecemeal. The county.
Then they just go somewhere else.
Exactly, and we can't do it by district. Matt and I, we've talked about this. Our team. Can we do it by District 1 first? No, because what happens in District 2, 3, and 4?
Mm-hmm.
So we realize we have to do. You're gonna have to help. You gotta do it on one day.
I like it.
It has to be next year.
You
Can't
have
wait
to answer
anymore.
the question, what you're going to do about the police.
Everywhere, all at once. You
We
gotta
need to-
solve one problem, and one problem might help the other problem, and then we gotta tackle that problem. And then there's a whole bunch of other, there's traffic lights, there's traffic stops, there's stupid bike lanes, there's climate, there's.
Quiet. I'm gonna get to a few last questions. It's 8:30. I want to be respectful. So let me get a couple more. Austin.
Well, so House Bill 4002 is going to take into effect in September, and that's going to be a tremendous amount of help in your
Tremendous
effort.
amount of help.
You know, I'm friends with Kevin Dahlgren, who single-handedly reversed homelessness in Gresham. Like, he got them to be, he rehabilitated the majority of their homeless population from being the highest per capita to less than 10 people, not per capita, but total. And then I'm friends with Commissioner Ben West over in Clackamas County, and he hired a team of basically 8 plus 10 Kevin Dahlgrens to do the same thing that Kevin had done, and they've already rehabilitated more than 65% of their homeless population in a very short period of time. And they're on track to do as much of the remaining 35% as they can.
So
in the next
Austin,
year.
the deputy DA called me from Clackamas County and said, Keith, I'm getting ready to release a person from jail. But he's got an RV, and I won't release him until he gets his RV. Can I bring it to your shelter? I called Matt and said, Matt, the deputy DA is going to call you because I gave you a number. He's a friend of mine, and you're going to tell him no. You're not going to allow it. So, Austin, I want to be clear with you. Just because they don't have 10, with Portland having 4,000, I'll tell you where they're at.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's these games that counties and cities play because Multnomah County and Portland has created. This is a Portland issue. It's not a Gresham issue. It's not a Troutdale issue. It's not a Multnomah County issue, everybody. This is a city of Portland issue.
Right.
Because you go to Gresham, it's in Multnomah County, it's beautiful. But they're using Portland as a catch-all for all the adjacent communities.
Yes, sir.
And Portland's using Lentz as the catch-all.
And Todd is exactly right. Because we did the fentanyl reset downtown.
Yes, sir.
So the point is so we care for all 145 square blocks. We do not end unsheltered homelessness downtown. We don't do it in District 1 or District 4. We do it citywide, and we do it in one fell swoop. We set it up. We know no one's going to come in on that first night, but we're going to have it set up, and then our officers, our outreach, hey everybody, taking your tent away. And we slowly start removing them all, and we're not handing out tents anymore through county, and we're notifying the RVs. You got 14 days. I noticed it's not registered. Let's get it registered. Let's get it insured. Let's get it moving. Oh, it's not operable. Let's get it fixed. Oh, it's not fixed. Day 14, it's towed. We will be slow and methodical, but we'll get it done in 90 days. It's not going to be overnight, but we gotta start somewhere. How do you eat an elephant?
Slowly.
One bite at a time. It's not something, but we have to end unsheltered homelessness on one day, and then we start extricating ourselves from the dead end that we've created for ourselves. Some last quick questions, and you all can leave. It's 8:30. No, you can't leave. Hey, hold on. My name is Keith Wilson. I'm running for mayor. So the only way I win this is I need donors and I need donations. I need numbers to meet a certain threshold of $750. If you donate $20, the city matches $180. And so I would ask that you talk to your friends.
You know, it's better than anything we've
And I
done
would,
yet.
if you would go back tonight.
It can't be
and have
any
at
worse
it.
than anything we've done.
Do you get my card?
How about factoring in?
Thank you for your time. This is a
How
long.
many individual donors we've gotten, Keith?
5.
The cartel.
Okay, that's pretty good.
It's
not bad.
Hey,
Move them
I hope I met your measure.
then up to Vancouver.
If you have a question, Todd, you know, you just talk. And if you guys got extra questions, just let me know what they are. If you have a question?
We've got to start somewhere. Well, it's better than anything I've heard yet.
Thank you for coming, everyone, tonight. We are adjourned.